The focus of today's seminar is obviously LinkedIn advertising, a beginner's guide. And the first thing we're going to start with is, a lot of people say, well, how do I access LinkedIn ads? Now, there's two ways you can do this, and we'll kind of show you that shortly, but these are just a couple of slides I want to go through before we go through the demo. You can start by clicking on the new advertise button in the top right of your profile, as shown in the top right. So if you are on LinkedIn, it should come up with that little arrow with a pinpoint and says advertise underneath it. If you click on that, that takes you through to Business Manager. Or if you can't see that, then just go to Google and type in LinkedIn Campaign Manager. If you want to be cheeky, click on their paid for ad and charge LinkedIn if you want to. I'm not bothered, it's entirely up to you. I don't know why they're actually bidding on that, since I don't think anybody else would. But you can just click on that link that just says Campaign Manager, you know, and you'll be in a good position to go directly to the LinkedIn campaign page. And before you begin, there are some elements we kind of want to share and, you know, almost like some do's before you do. Make sure you have a LinkedIn profile. Seems quite obvious and basic generic, but without one, you can't access or create you know, a LinkedIn campaign manager account or a company a profile page. You need to have a company profile page. It's simple to set up. If you don't have one, the question is why and where have you been? You know, this whole time, because you could have done that during lockdown if you really wanted to. Again, without a profile page, you can't run LinkedIn ads because you have to have an ad account associated with a company profile page or company page to run that out. Then you need to make sure you set up a LinkedIn ad account. Again, when you get into LinkedIn Campaign Manager, as we showed in the slide before, it'll ask you to set up an ad account. Just follow the very, very simple basic steps on how to do that. It's easy to do. And again, it can't be done without a profile and the ability to link an actual company page to it. Make sure you give yourself access and link the page, because when you create an ad account, and then you won't be able to actually run ads unless you link your company page to it. So once you've got your ad account set up, make sure you have the right access, make sure you're the main billing coordinator, and make sure you link your page in. And when you get in there, it's important to do some basics like set your limits and access. So the ad account will ask you to fill in some other details like bank details for billing, to run ads, some personal information about you and the company to make sure it matches your actual profile page. You can also at this stage start setting up spending limits and elements like that, which is a good tool to do and a good thing to do, especially if you're going to go in to set a monthly budget and a monthly campaign. That means if you set up, you know, account limits, spending limits, you will never go above that no matter what per month. So it kind of protects you and your business. And at the bottom, I'm just going to actually hide my video panels. At the bottom, set up your pixel on your site. Once you've got all that elements done, make sure you set up your pixel on your site. We'll show you how to do that when we get into the platform, but it's simple. As long as you've got Google Tag Manager set up, it's very simple and easy to set up. And without setting up a pixel, you won't be able to track what you're doing within LinkedIn to see if it's having an impact. And finally, the last thing to do is, if you are considering setting up a LinkedIn ad account and you want to do LinkedIn advertising, please, please, please have an objective in mind. Know who you want to target in terms of know who the ideal audience is and have a budget in mind. Because if you don't, the amount of times we kind of get businesses come up to us, this is going to be our response. This is what we're just going to say. Yeah, so if you come up to us and say you don't have a budget, you don't know who you want to target, and you don't have an objective in mind, that is the video we're going to send to you throughout that. So now that we've done that, we're going to go into actually build a real campaign. So I'm just going to stop that quick share. I'm going to go into LinkedIn Campaign Manager. Well, I'm actually going to go to my profile and show you how you actually get into LinkedIn Campaign Manager. So here we are. So can everybody see my LinkedIn profile? I'm hoping they can. I'm just going to show video panel. Someone just give me a wave. Sorry, I couldn't see if anyone could see that. Yeah, fantastic. So again, you can click on this advertise button as I showed before, and this is the page that actually comes up. Internet, please don't let me down right now. So here we go. Obviously, we've got a lot of accounts in there. This is what comes up. If you're going to create an account, this is what you click on, create account, and then it asks you to, name it, make sure you set it to British pounds, and again, enter the LinkedIn page with your account. So again, you have the option to create a LinkedIn page, but it will ask you to put in the name or the URL of where you want to do it. That's why when I said make sure you do those elements first, you have to kind of LinkedIn, so it makes sense to do it. So I'm just going to cancel that because we already got one. We're going to go into, once you have it, this is what will come up. We'll just call it Bobble Digital. This is what comes up. You get the campaign manager view. You have different options that come up. In the settings mode, this is where you can edit access, manage access, go to your billing center to update your details. Manage access is quite simple. You can give people, access that you want or don't want. You want to make sure that someone in the company is the actual owner. Again, billing center allows you to do that, and contact settings, if anyone from LinkedIn wants to get in contact with you about your ad account, you can put that in place. It gives you different tabs. So campaign performance tab is the main tab you will get to kind of show where your campaigns are. Within here, you will have obviously campaign groups, campaigns, which allow you to see what campaigns you're running in ad groups. You get to see your ads. Again, nothing will come up when you actually start up until you actually build a campaign. So that's just kind of show you the kind of layout of LinkedIn. It's kind of like 3 tiers. You create your campaign, you create your ad group, which you do your targeting with, and then you create your ads, and they're kind of like the 3 layers you kind of work on. Here you can see your website demographics when you're running. So again, make sure you set up your insight tag. And then account assets is key because you can manage your tag, you can set up custom conversions, you can upload matched audiences, which we'll explore in more detail in another talk where we talk about advanced level. And you can set up stuff like lead gen forms here. So if you want to do, let's say, lead gen ads, you would have to create a form here first to kind of run it and set it up and then be able to access that. And we'll show you that shortly. So when we go to campaign performance and you want to create a campaign, we're now going to do that in a very, very simple way to show you how to set up a campaign and why it's important to know your objective and understand your audience. So I'm going to create a new campaign group, and here I'm just going to call it Bitesize Demo. I'm going to move it to draft. The reason I move it to draft is if you set it to active and then you keep it active and you've already put your billing details in and you press launch campaign, it'll start spending straight away. So I always put it in draft because you want to set everything up first and then you want to kind of review everything, and then it's just a simple case of turning it from draft to active. So you can set everything up at any level, but it kind of lets you create it in like draft mode first, and that's the best way to do it. You can run it continuously from a start date. You can run it from a start date to an end date, or start date and an end date with a budget in mind. Depending on if you've got a budget in mind, that means you won't run more than that total campaign, total budget across that specific campaign. So let's say we're only going to put £100 in. It's going to start, it's going to start. Sorry, this tab at the bottom kind of comes up. So let me just zoom out of that one here. Let's say it's going to start today and we're going to end it on Sunday, for example. Let's zoom back. And let's just save that. So, and then when you look at it, there it is at the bottom, Bobble Bitesize Event Demo. Then you want to go on, click on the 3 buttons on the right, because this is where you can start setting up the actual campaigns and ads within it. So we'll go into manage. Sorry, no, you've got to go into here. Sorry, skipped a step. You want to create a campaign first and then you want to go into manage. So when you create a campaign, this is the platform that kind of comes up. It does give you a walkthrough to help you in terms of like, welcome to Campaign Creator, let's get started, name your campaign. It's quite simple to do, but here's why it's important to have an objective, because LinkedIn gives you different variations to start different kind of campaigns, whether you want to do brand awareness, you want to drive website visits, video views. Again, it explains what each one does when you hover over, or if you want to focus on conversions like lead generation, website conversions, or if you're applying for jobs and do job applications, if you want people to respond to that. For this instance, let's do probably the most important element. I'm just going to make sure that's all right. So we want to head up to the more important element, which is probably website conversions, which is what people want to achieve. Once you set that up, it comes up here. You can relabel this here, and we'll just call it Bitesize conversion campaign, which is basically sign up. You can label whatever it is or whatever you want, but just know once you get past this and you save, you can't go back and rechange it. So once you press save and exit, you can't actually change the objective. You'll have to set up a new campaign. It's one of the frustrating things about LinkedIn that you can't. And this is where a lot of the elements become quite important, because this is why it's important to know who you want to target. LinkedIn gives you predefined audiences if you want to target specific people like financial advisors, financial decision makers, IT decision makers, marketing professionals. But I say they're very, very broad. So if we were to say, right, we want to target marketing professionals to come to our event, it pre-fills it in and it says, right, our audience size here is, just under 500,000 in terms of the actual segment breakdown. 9% of these people fit the function of, marketing. And this is where it kind of pre-fills in different kind of marketing roles for you to target. But that's all it kind of does. There are other ways that you can add to this. And it lets you click here for add more attributes, or you can add in other elements. So here I can just go into like company. I want to look at, company size. So maybe I just want to look at, companies that have, the more larger companies, just 200, employees or more. I don't want to focus on small SMEs. I can then target by specific industries and take that further and say, you know what, we're doing really well in, the manufacturing side of the business, and we want to focus on, industrial automation, automotive, aviation, that kind of sector only. So really, really narrow. But what you notice on the right is the more narrow you get, the smaller your audience gets. So forecasting bigger elements becomes too specific. So maybe we might just turn around and say, go a bit broad and actually go back to companies and industries, and we might even want to target another sector as well and say, well, you know what, we want to target retail and start target, online retailers. And then as you can see, then the audience increases. So the more sectors you put in, the more your audience changes, but just bear that in mind. You can do other elements, and there's a lot of elements that you can target by demographics, age, gender. You can look at, education in terms of their fields of study, and you can type them in. So I want to make sure they've done a marketing degree. So I want to make sure they've done marketing. These are things you can start, adding in. You can add further elements in, like job experience, job titles, how long they've been into that, certain skills they have. I think based on what we're doing with job titles, job seniorities, it can't be done with job titles. So it's something you've got to bear in mind. So if you just want to focus on senior people as to specific job functions, which is what this does, we would have to, for example, let's say bin that. And then if we wanted to add in more attributes and target people by job seniority, then you can target people by, let's say, partner, owner, director, manager, VP, etc., the top seniorities. And again, you all just notice that your audience always changes based on what you're doing. And then once you've defined your audience, you can actually, you can save that as a template if you want to use it again. So you don't have to keep building that up. You can use that as a starting ground and edit that, or you can view your full audience summary at the side on the right and see how that goes. Then it's understanding what kind of ad format you want to focus on. So there's different elements you can run within LinkedIn. You can run a single image ad, which kind of appears within your generic newsfeed. You can do carousel ads, again, appears in newsfeed, but you can scroll across the different ads. You can have a video ad, a text ad is essentially an ad that appears in the top right, but I don't think many people notice. We very rarely use that. Then you've got your message ads, which is basically in mails, what appears in your inbox within elements, and then you've got your spotlight ad, which appears in the network, and then you've got conversion ads, which is a beta element that's just come out, which essentially is more of a targeted ad. You can then enable LinkedIn Audience Network. Essentially what that means is LinkedIn works with other media and DSP providers where they can share their network out and target your ads on specific sites beyond just LinkedIn based on how those sites are linked in towards the actual platform itself. So for this impact, let's just say we're going to do a single image ad. And this is where it comes key, because for this campaign, you can set up different audiences. So you could set up one campaign focused just on, I don't know, marketing senior professionals only. Again, you can target by location. You can even go down by, leads. You can't go down to postcode areas, so you can do leads or the Greater Leeds area, for example. And then you want to kind of set your budget. And that's why it's important to have a budget in mind, because the budget you have kind of dictates, how much you do. You can set a daily budget or a daily and a total budget. Just note that if I put in 5, it says the daily budget needs to be £8. So just take that into consideration. So if you've only got, let's say, £100 to spend, that's only going to get you 5-6 days worth of actual spend within the platform. So even if you put £100 total budget in, that's £8 a day. So that'll probably last you to 10-12 days. But again, you're at the actual minimum daily budget, so you're not going to get a lot of audience. Plus, if you're only targeting 700 people, that's enough budget to target. When you've got much higher volumes of audiences, then you can actually increase your budget and actually change it there. I would always say set a daily and a total budget, because if you're not monitoring it on an often basis, at least you don't overspend and you have certain limits in place. You can set a start date and an end date beyond what's in the actual campaign group. So you might want this campaign to run for 2 days and set up another campaign to run for 3 days after that. And then here's where you can set your bidding. Automated bid is not really advised. You can go for an enhanced CPC bid, but here's something you kind of need to consider. If I only want to target marketing seniors in Leeds, I have to bid at least £9 and 10 per, and so my daily budget of £8 is not going to work. So what I'm going to have to do is change that pound to 20. So this is the biggest issue with LinkedIn advertising, but it's also why it's quite effective, because the audience is so valuable. It's also very, very, very expensive. So when you think the recommended bid is £9, but the minimum is £6.85 and the highest £14, I can change that and say, you know what, let's get that to £8 minimum and focus it on there. It's actually very, very difficult to get a high volume of clicks. And you can see once you put a budget in and you set a bid limit, it tells you how many impressions you're going to get over that period and how much total spend you're going to achieve between, how many clicks you're going to achieve. So we're only going to get 5 to 13 clicks, which might not sound appealing, but again, we've very narrowed down our audience by, location, by job seniority, by their education. If we want to add in job titles, we can do. So it becomes very, very, very narrow and niche, but that's the benefit of LinkedIn. You get a higher quality click compared to what you do on Facebook and other platforms. So just bear that in mind when you're doing it. Then here's where you can set up conversion elements, but if you haven't set up your tagging, we'll do that, but we'll cover that off in another element. Is it making me set up a conversion before I move on to? I'll just say thank you page. Sorry, I'm just making this up just so it lets me get to the next page. So that's why it's important to have your insight tag implemented, because it will ask you to set up a conversion element around that. Obviously, we're just going to go to next. Remember, when you click next and it says confirm save, your objective and ad format cannot be changed once you save that. So if you want to decide you want to do an in-mail campaign or a video campaign, you just can't add that in-mail or video to this campaign. You have to build it up. That's why it's important to save your audience and save it as a template. So if you know that's the audience you want to do and you want to do an image ad, a video ad and an email ad. Unfortunately, unlike with Facebook, you could run all those different ads within your one platform. With on LinkedIn, it makes you create them separately, so you'd have to have a different budget for each one to test it. So for this benefit, we'll just click confirm and save and go to next bit. And then it kind of takes you to kind of the create an ad campaign. And here it's quite straightforward. You create an ad, label it, test, ad. You can put in your text, you can put in your website URL. So let's type in bobbledigital.com. We can upload an image, so we can just go and, you know, go to documents, Bobble Digital. Let's just get one of our event images on here. And before you know it, the image uploads, and then the preview updates on the right. It shows you what it looks like on a desktop and a mobile. So as you're typing in text, we can say, sign up to Bobble Bitesize, and then before you know it, it'll update on the right. Then you can put in a headline is, it's free, don't be cheap, I don't know, and then that'll be, you know, kind of entice people to come up. You can add in a call to action that says, you know, sign up, request a demo, attend, join, register. So we can just say, you know, sign up because it's the most relevant. We want people to sign up, and then you have the option to add it to the campaign and create. And then when you do that, again, a very simple process. You've created your ad, you've got your image, you've got your message. This is something you have to work on. It goes into draft mode. And that's where I kind of like save and exit, because if you go next, again, it's going to make you confirm all the elements and get you to launch the campaign. But this is where you can review elements. And at this point, I would just press save and exit and go back to each element and make sure we're happy with the way everything's done by looking at manage and checking that the campaign setup is done effectively. So that is essentially a very, very, very quick and easy, simple step to get you from setting up an ad account and the processes to follow. It seems very, very straightforward. Again, this whole element is recorded for you to do that, but that's why it's important to know what your objective is, because then when you get to that campaign building stage, you're going to kind of struggle to understand what it is you kind of need to do and build. And just for the benefit for the rest, I've just done a bit of a summary here on the next page in terms of like remembering the following steps. Again, I'll send this out for everyone as a PDF so you can make sure you have the fundamentals in place, you know, your profile, company page, ad account setup. Plan ahead, please, please, please. Know your audience objective and have a budget in mind. You know, when we actually go through the setup, you have to select your audience, you have to select a specific objective you want to achieve, and it makes you set up your budget. And kind of looking at your audience, you kind of get a realize of how much budget you need. If you do have a budget in mind, play with the platform and see how much CPC you've got to bid at minimum and how much budget you need to run a campaign over a specific amount of days. You can maybe use it that way. Make sure you got your tracking in place to measure all your results, because as you can see from the issues we had, we didn't set up the insight tag, so that's something you want to do. Make sure you select your objective based on what your company objective is. Don't just do lead ads if you want to drive traffic to a website, for example. So make sure you select the right objective, have a clear message and creative setup. Review all the steps of building a campaign before you set it live, so you make sure you're happy with the audience. Remember, be specific with your audience, save it, use it for other campaigns if you want to run different ad formats. Set budget limits and daily limits, protect yourself from wastage, that's why we do it. And you've got to measure and review the performance daily. If in doubt, or if you're unsure what tools to use, very, very simple, Google what it is you're trying to do. Through Google search and read the articles, or YouTube it. There's a lot of videos out there that kind of show these kind of stuff. Or if you're really stuck, ask us to do it for you if you really, really want. So that brings it up to any questions for the next 5 minutes that anybody wants to ask and come off mute and go through.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Right from the start, you did it from your personal profile.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't need to set it from your company profile. You can do it. Yeah.
So the way it works is LinkedIn Campaign Manager is a platform. You need to have a profile to access it. You need to be, that's why I say you need to have a profile to access that element. when you go into it, when we create a new, company account or create a new ad account, it makes you link your company profile page. So in that sense, it asks you for a URL. So without it, you can't set up the ad account. So once you've got your profile, and I'll actually just quickly share this in terms of if you don't know how to set up a company profile page, just click on the Me section, and then you've got all your profiles here. But if you want to create a new company page, you can do it from here. Create a company page by clicking on the work button, click create a company page. Once you've created that, it'll appear here. So obviously I haven't created all these. I work with a lot of other companies where we actually are admins of their accounts to be able to run ads on here. So it comes up here so you can actually access it. So without that coming up here, you won't be able to run the actual campaign. So that's why it's important to have your profile, set up a company page first, and then go into advertise and set up an ad account, because it asks for the URL to which to associate that company page for, at which point you need to be an admin for that company page to be able to then run ads or create ads. So if you ever get to the stage to create ad, but it doesn't let you, that means you don't have the right, permissions to actually create an ad, or because you don't actually have access on the page to do so, the right access on the page to do so.
So the ad would be running your company page rather than your Manny's personal page.
The ad works like Facebook. In the top left, it'll say Bobble Digital.
Okay. Yeah.
And have the Bobble Digital logo on. It won't come from my personal profile.
Okay.
Unless you're doing an email campaign, in which it has to be a person that it comes from as opposed to a company. So whoever's an admin on it, so if you want it to come from a business development manager, they need to be an admin of the page for you to select them. But I can go through those elements on another talk, or privately if people want to go through that. So yeah, it comes from, just like on Facebook where you see the company page, that's how it works on LinkedIn. But you can actually historically see what your competitors are doing. I'll just actually kind of quickly, because I know this is kind of running over a little, is if I go into, I don't know, someone give me a company name. You know what, let's go on Funding Circle because I looked at them recently. Here on your home page, you have your generic posts. But if you click on this section here, ads, you can see if they've done any promoted ads and when and how recently. So your promoted ads still are visible to people on the profile, but just under this tab here. And that's, you don't even have to follow the page. So if you want to know what your competitors are doing, that's another kind of good tool to use. And LinkedIn actually gives you that insight. So if you want ideas to see what other people in the industry are doing, just go to those company pages and see if they're running ads and what kind of ads, to give yourself some inspiration. So if you're always struggling, you can do that. But again, you won't be able to do that without a company profile. Any other questions?
I've got another one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you only do LinkedIn ads if the actual value of the product or lifetime value of a client is quite reasonable? Because it seems obviously quite expensive for...
So that, it depends by objective. So with the objective we went for was website conversion. So you're driving people away from the LinkedIn platform, but it depends. If you want to drive, brand awareness, then yeah, it's a great platform. If you want to drive video views, then yeah, it's great. If you want to do a lead gen, then again, you do pay, a cost per click, but you get the pre-qualified data. It really depends on what the objective is. But yes, you got to consider that LinkedIn is not a cheap platform. It is expensive. It doesn't deliver the same results from a B2B perspective, let's say Facebook, but we always see the quality from Facebook is poorer than LinkedIn. So you're paying a premium, but you do get better quality conversions and better quality leads from it. And in some cases, it can get quite expensive. So that's why you've got to have those budget limits in place to make sure you don't go above what you want to spend. So if you're spending £50 to get a lead, but if one lead is worth maybe £500 to £600, then yeah, it's worthwhile. But if you're spending £50 to get a lead, but that conversion, if you're only selling a product that's worth £100, is it really worth doing it from that perspective? And that's where you can look at other elements. So like you can maybe do in-mails, which cost 20p to 40p on average, to get someone in the box to open it up and push it different ways. There are different tactics to bring that cost down. And just remember, the more narrow you get with the audience, the more expensive it's going to be. The more broader you are, the cheaper it's going to be. But again, that has the opposite effect in terms of if you're a broader audience, you're going to have not as good quality results. Yes, you're going to get more clicks and impressions, but you know, are you going to get the same quality of conversions if you really narrow your audience down?
And I know it depends on sector and all kinds of things, but do you know an average lead gen or conversion rate from in-mail?
From in-mail, I'd say open rates are between 50-60% are very, very good. If you're getting an open rate of just 20 to 30%, that's poor. That's just based on experience. I mean, we average between 45 and 50%, which we think is good or on par with what we see within the industry. But that's just someone opening the email. In terms of conversion rate from that to someone actually converting, I always say a good benchmark is around about 3 to 5% conversion rate, no matter what platform.
Okay.
Because that's realistic. If you're, it depends on how many clicks have come through. If you've driven 20 clicks from that, and your conversion rate's 3 to 5%, then you're looking at maybe 1 to 2 conversions, which is realistic, or maybe even 1. But from that 20 clicks to the website, one person converts, and it's cost you, I don't know, £200 to drive that, but you've made, a £7,000 sale, then yeah, totally worth it. So again, that's where tracking and all those elements come into play, and play an important role into understanding what's working, not working, and that's where you got to do a bit of A/B testing. Mm-hmm. But I'll go through this in another talk later on in the year. I'll set it up for October to kind of go through, well, now to set up a campaign. How do you do the other elements of optimizing? What are the different benefits from in-mail to lead gen, etc. Are there any other questions? Feel free to put it in the chat if you haven't already. But I can see everyone shared their details, which is great. So yeah, just quickly to share what's coming up, because it's now coming up to summer, and we're only going to be doing one event in August, and that's kind of like what I say, kind of an important one, because it's been talking about adapting your digital strategy in the new normal. Now that we've had a lot of data and insights and trends, this is going to be a very informative one in terms of how to kind of move forward towards the end of the year. In September, even though it's a bit early, it's the right time to be thinking about seasonal advertising. So if we do get back to a bit of normality, and especially if you're in retail or you want to maximize on the Christmas offers, then you need to start planning at that stage at the latest in terms of September. You need to have a plan in place by the end of September. So that's why we're doing that talk. And then on the 23rd, we have a guest speaker talking, people up there talking about branding and how that's been changed over the last few months and how businesses are coming back and adapting the way they sell. If you want to be a guest speaker, feel free to reach out to us, because we're doing these events online at 2 a month from September to December. And then lastly, if you want a free digital strategy from us, or if you want to reach out on anything we've done, feel free to contact me at myfree.sing@bobbledigital.com or call me on my mobile.